Undoubtedly, one of the most important times in the little Jeep's career was the mid-1944 to early May 1945, when thousands of these invaded Europe via D-Day and headed up on through France to help defeat the Germans. Entering Europe via D-Day would bring on a whole load of different risks that the little Jeep would have to come up against. And these required lots of different specialised features that are specific to the World War II D-Day Jeep. So that's what we're going to look at today. We're going to look at my top 5 D-Day features for the World War II Jeep. So join me as we work around this beautiful machine and have a look at some of those specific features which are really important for helping us win the World War II. Okay then, so number 1 of my top 5 D-Day features for the World War II Jeep. It's the most obvious, so let's start on it first. It's the World War II wire cutter. Now the Germans unfortunately had a nasty habit in World War II of stringing up little bits of piano wire between trees, and when you're driving around in a Jeep with your windscreen down, as you would be if you're in a combat zone in Europe when it's nice and sunny like it is today, unfortunately there's nothing to stop that piece of wire strung across the road coming across along the top of this flat vehicle, and sadly the first thing that it'll come to is your neck. So the Allies had to think of something to defeat this, and what they came up with was the wire cutter. And what is the wire cutter? Well, the great thing about it is it's really, really simple. All it is a piece of angle iron with a support strut. So as you're driving along, the first thing that the piano wire will come to is not your neck, it's this big lump of iron here. So as it comes along, it would hit here, move up, there's a notch cut in it here, which you sharpened with a file, and it would go up and it would slice it, ping, and the wire would be cut rather than it cutting your neck. So like most good ideas, it's very, very simple and straightforward. Now the wire cutter was as varied as the soldiers who were making them. It was done in the field and it was done with what they had available to them. So you see all sorts of different things with the wire cutter. You've got strengthening supports which go out down here to these points. You've got ones which go up here as well. You've got ones which don't have them. You've got ones which are 10 foot tall and ones which only come to about here as well. So when it comes to these, if you want to put one on your Jeep, you can do whatever you want. Now, one of the interesting things is, I haven't really seen a photo of this, but we know they did it. They did use German barbed wire posts as well, and this is a German barbed wire post. Obviously there were tens of thousands of these hanging around in Europe, so you make use of what you can, and a German barbed wire post is as good bit of metal as any to cut any piano wire strung across the road. So that's what I've done here. We've got a nice German barbed wire post. Interestingly enough, it does actually have an eagle stamped on the back of that we'll have a look at, but like most German things in World War II, it's far too over-engineered, beautifully made, and they galvanized the whole thing as well. So even though this is 80 years old and was a barbed wire post from a beach in Guernsey, this had no corrosion on it at all, which is part of the reasons the Germans lost the war, wasn't it? Because they were so good at making stuff. They did it too well. So thank you, Germany, for that, for my barbed wire post. So the wire cutter is a really important part of the World War II Jeep. You see it in many, many photos of them and many, many bits of film. I would say probably 80% of the Jeeps in Europe, or the early part of the invasion of Europe, had a wire cutter on it, because it was really important, of course. You were protecting yourself, you were protecting your own neck and your buddies' necks as well. So I would certainly have been driving around with one as well. So that's why we've got one fitted to my Jeep today. So number 1, my number 1 feature for the D-Day Jeeps is the wire cutter. My second top D-Day feature for the World War II Jeep is about another risk, and that risk is something we've got today, and it's shining down in my face at the moment. It's the sun, it's glare. On top of the Jeep here, we've got the screen down, which is what they did in World War II in D-Day and around Europe. You didn't want the screen up getting in the way, and also increasing the profile of the Jeep, so you had it lying down. Part of the reason, of course, we have the wire cutter on it. Now, the thing about this is the screen has a big piece of glass in it, okay? And what we have on it is not a cover to protect the screen. I mean, of course it can protect a little bit, but it's not to do that. What it's to do is to stop glare, okay? Because glare is a real killer. When you're out and about, the sun shining down on this thing and bouncing off can literally be seen for tens of miles. You know, when I'm flying around, we can see glare and screens reflecting light up at us, you know, 50, 100 miles away. It's really incredible. So glare was a killer. So what you had is anywhere where there were big bits of glass, is we put a big bit of canvas on it, okay? So on the screen here, we've got the World War II canvas cover for the screen. The other thing as well, of course, is down here on the lights. We also have glare there as well. So we've got the canvas covers on these. Now, when I'm looking through archive footage, you do see nearly every Jeep has blacked out headlights. Now, whether they've got the canvas covers on or whether they're painted over with OD is difficult to tell a lot of the time, but I think you can see sort of 50-50. They've got the covers and they've got OD on them, you know, they're painted up as well. So we've got these two little items here which prevent that glare and keep the Jeep safe. Interestingly enough, one of the things they didn't put a cover on, would you believe, is the mirror on a Jeep. Now, you have to think about it. Why didn't they do that for a second? Well, first off, the mirror on a World War II Jeep has a darkened coating to it, so it doesn't create quite as much glare. The second thing about it is you can move that mirror down. So all you have to do is lie it down on the side. You know, if you're not driving in a convoy or something like that and you don't need the mirror, goes down on the side, no problem with glare at all. So you're not going to waste resources making a cover for the mirror unless you need it. So no covers on mirrors, strangely enough, but covers on windshields, covers on headlights. Windshield covers, see them on 90% of World War II Jeeps in Europe in the early parts of the invasion. Headlight covers, most Jeeps have headlight covers on them as well. So really, really common, but a great item for the World War II D-Day Jeep. The windscreen cover and the headlight covers. Get rid of that glare, keep yourself safe. Okay peeps, item number 3 on the D-Day top features for the World War II Jeep. Yes, it sort of leads on actually in a way from what we've just talked about. Now, it's the problem of the blackout lights on the Jeep, and it's something which we don't actually, it hasn't been talked about too much, but you see a hell of a lot of Jeeps with this, okay? Obviously, if you're driving around at night, you need to be, you need to see and you need to be seen. But the problem is when you're operating in a war zone, you don't really want to be seen, do you? But you still do want to see. Now, the way they dealt with this is you've got something on the side down there. We've got a blackout light on the World War II Jeep, and that just shines a really dim light in front of the Jeep so you can drive around. Let's go and have a look at what it's actually like driving with one of these on. Okay, peeps, it's pretty dark now, and it's just me and the bugs and Charlie Manson and whatever else is lurking out here. To start off with, let's just have a look at what it's like just driving around with a 6-volt normal light. You can see they're pretty good, aren't they? You can make out quite a lot. They're not as bad as some people say, actually. I've done some driving with them, and they're not terrible. Anyway, first thing I want to show you, though, is the blackout light from around it, okay? So not what you can see when you're driving with it. If you're nearby, what can you see? And really, it is actually really impressive. It's very good at not being seen. The only problem comes, of course, when we're trying to drive with it. So first off, let's just walk around it and have a look. See, I told you Charlie Manson's around here. Okay, well, from this side view, I mean, you can hardly see anything, can we? Oh, we're standing about 4 meters away from it, and that's all you can see from the side, from a front side view. So that's pretty impressive. This is directly in front, and you can see the marker lights. Those are the blackout driving marker lights for when you're driving in a convoy for the guy in front of you to see. But you can see the blackout driver's light. You can't see anything from up here. It's all shining down. And then this is 15 meters away. Let's be honest. That's impressive, isn't it? Okay then, so what about these blackout lights then? Right, are you ready? This is dark, and this is a light on. Right, and then here is headlamps. Bit of a difference. Let's go back to blackout. And then off. Right, should we give this a shot then? There's quite a moon tonight, so I'm sort of cheating a little bit, but you can probably see about as much as I can. There's no differentiation between the road and the side of the road, and I can see where I'm going due to the moon, but I mean, it's not good, it's not great. Going about 4 miles an hour. Yeah, not easy to see. You can see why they put more than one blackout light on these things. Okay, so as you can see, it's pretty much useless. I mean, you can drive about 2 miles an hour tops, and it's really hard work on your eyes. So to kill 2 birds with 1 stone then, rather than putting the headlamp covers on these things or painting over the headlamps, why don't you increase your visibility at night by putting some blackout lights where the headlamps are? That would stop any glare during the day because the sun won't be bouncing off any glass, and at night you'll be able to see even better. So that's what they did. So you see a hell of a lot of Jeeps in photos and in archive footage driving around with big blackout lamps where the headlamps were. Quite a good number of them actually. Now, I initially thought what they'd done is they'd put the American blackout lamps where the headlights were, but that doesn't seem to be the case actually. A lot of these seem to be much larger blackout lamps, so they must have got hold of some different blackout lamps. Maybe they're British or something like that. I'm not entirely sure. But it's a very, very common thing to see, and it's a really good answer to the risk of not being able to see at night and also removing glare during the day. So that's what they did. But yeah, number 3 on my top D-Day features is extra blackout lights for these things because it's difficult to see at night. Okay, top feature number 4 for the D-Day Jeep is signs of the deep water fording kit. Now, when we were obviously invading Europe to start off with, we weren't able to just go straight into ports. We had to land on beaches and work our way inland. So what that means, obviously, is there's going to be a lot of water involved. Now, sadly, the little World War II Jeep has a lot of things, but she ain't completely waterproof, okay? And you try and drive this thing in deep water, it will soon start to die and you'll get stuck, okay? And obviously we didn't want that to happen. We wanted the Jeeps to get off the beaches challenges. So deep water fording was really, really important. So a retrofit deep water fording kit was made for the Jeep. And all this generally did in general, let's look at it simply, is you took your air from somewhere else. So rather than taking it from the big air filter here, you put a pipe, it went underneath here. You strapped, if you had the windscreen up, you strapped it to the side of the windscreen. If you didn't have the windscreen up, you got a stick and you stuck it down there, taped it all up, put this little cap on the top of it, and then you get your air from all the way up there. Same sort of thing with the exhaust on the other side, goes all the way up. There are obviously lots of other little things here. You know, you've got things like distributor breather that has to come out, the vent for the fuel tank, loads of little things which need air and they have to go up high. The other thing, of course, is keeping water out elsewhere. So the whole thing was covered in asbestos waterproofing compound, which is an asbestos sort of grease. They used to spend up to a week or over a week, you know, literally on a single Jeep, putting this compound all over it to make sure that the thing was waterproof. You drove it off the LST or whatever onto the beach, go up to the de-waterproofing area and then spend, you know, a couple of hours removing all this crud off it, getting it ready to drive inland. And what that left then for us to see is the signs of the deep water fording. So when we're looking through photos and videos, we can see it. Now, one of the real telltale signs that the Jeep, which you're looking at in Normandy, had the deep water fording kit on it is that the air pipe which goes on here is a big chunky thing, and when you have the hood down, there's only a small gap there where this pipe is supposed to come. You can see the fuel filter is in the way there. So all they did is they just used to wrench this out of the way, you know, wrench the side of the hood up, get the pipe coming up, and you get your air in there. And obviously wrenching this poor old hood gives a bit of a bend in it. So if we look at a photo like here, we can see the side of that fender, or should I say the side of that hood there, is bent up a little bit, and that's because this Jeep waded inland and had the deep water fording kit. So that's a really interesting little detail that we can look at there, and really important part of D-Day Jeeps. Now, I just happen to have, would you believe, part of a deep water fording kit, and in one of the videos after this, one of my later videos, we're going to break into that and have a look what's in there. And we, you know, I've got the cap. Why don't we try and do some deep water fording with this, or as much as we can do with a nicely restored Jeep. I'm not going to cover the whole thing in 10 tons of asbestos grease, but you can have a little bit of a play in it, because I really want to look what's inside that box, obviously, and I've got some other bits as well. So yeah, if you haven't subscribed, check around, come back and we'll break that open and do some deep water fording, or at least break into that box and set up the air pipe and things like that. So that's my number 4 then. That's the 4th great World War II D-Day feature for the World War II Jeep. Okay peeps, as we move on to our 5th top feature for the D-Day Jeep, if you've enjoyed this video so far, just make sure you drop a like down below to let me know you've enjoyed it, or leave a comment as well. Perhaps I've missed something out that you would have put down here as being your top feature for the D-Day Jeep. So it just lets me know that you're enjoying the content and helps me keep on creating as well. So if you could do that, I'd really appreciate it. But let's move on to the 5th and final feature for the World War II D-Day Jeep. Okay, the 5th top feature for the Jeep is something that's really missing on this Jeep, and although it doesn't seem like it to start off with, when you start looking at the archive footage and what have you, you can really notice it. This Jeep is practically naked in comparison to most D-Day Jeeps or European theatre Jeeps, you know, in Normandy. This thing is a pack mule. This replaced the horse and the mule, this thing. So it was the GI's best friend. It had to go anywhere with him, had to look after him. He didn't know when he was going to find fuel next. He didn't know when he was going to get water next. You know, he didn't know what he was going to come up against. So this thing had to have everything. So what it had on it was, what is missing on here is everything pretty much. You know, it's very, very common to see extra gas cans, extra water cans down there, up on the fender. If you look at this photo here, you can see this Jeep has got 3 gas cans on the back of it, you know, perhaps full of water, perhaps full of gasoline, who knows. The whole back of them would be completely full of it. You'd got your tow rope on the front of it. Many Jeeps had the bustle rack on the rear here, the big bustle rack, so you could just get a bit more storage space in the Jeep, because in reality there isn't a huge amount of storage, especially if you've got a radio like I do. It removes quite a lot of the storage space in here. So really just loading the thing up as much as possible was a massive feature of the European theatre Jeeps, you know, and it's something I'll be working towards as well. I'm not going to completely go mad with it, you know. I like driving it quite fast and quite a lot, so I don't want loads of stuff clanking around in it. You know, I'm not driving it 5 miles an hour around in the bocage. I'm going quite fast in it, so I won't completely load it up, but I will put some more things on here. it's a really interesting thing to see. And if you like gear and you like playing with stuff and collecting stuff, it's really fantastic. The European theatre Jeeps is really fantastic for that sort of thing, because you can do whatever you want. Your mind can go mad. Whatever you want to put on your Jeep, wherever you want to put it and however you want to put it on there, just go for it, because that's exactly what they did in Normandy. The radio is supposed to go in that way on the Jeep. That's the way it's supposed to go. However, there are loads of photos with the radio going like this, or not hanging, it's hanging over the back, or you know, the radio mount for the antenna is completely on the rear, or it's down there, or it's in the front, or whatever. It's all over the place, because that's what they did with these things. So if you want to do it, you can do it, and that's a really interesting feature of these. So that's my 5th top feature of the D-Day Jeep, is just load the thing up, put on as much as possible, because that's how they were in D-Day. It really surprised me, actually. You know, initially I thought, oh, it's just people who like gear, but nope, they really loaded these things up. So you can too if you want to. So there you have it, 5 more examples of why this vehicle is just absolutely fantastic. As always, everyone, thanks for joining me today. If you're not a subscriber, make sure to subscribe, make sure to give me a like, and maybe join me on Patreon as well. But until next time, have a good week, and I'll see you in the future. Enjoy Jeeping. Cheers.